All right, you can be seated. I'd like to welcome everybody to another class of the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program Teacher Certification course. We've got a great crowd here tonight at the headquarters, and I'm sure many of you are joining now online. And we're in the respect unit tonight. One of the things that you can do for those of you that are online and might not have a book, you can go to the Facebook official Peaceful Solution page, and when you see the respect book there, you'll see a place where you can actually download the book, download the pages to the book, and any of the books that we've covered so far, character, acceptance, self-control, you can look at those and download those also, so you can have the very thing that we're looking at. This is the respect unit right here on the overhead. If you could take a look at that real quick, that's okay. And respect is important in society. You've got to respect yourself. You need to respect others around you, not just your family members, not just the people you work with, not just the clerk at the store. You should show respect to everybody. And everybody deserves respect also. That's something a little bit different than what some programs teach. Some programs teach you have to get respect, you have to give it, and you have to earn respect and so forth. That's not true. Everybody deserves respect, and everybody should give respect. Certain things do have to be earned, like honor, trust. You have to earn someone's trust. And we talk about those things in the Peaceful Solution too. So the respect unit is the unit that was most requested in schools when we would go to schools, and normally they'd really request Chapter 5, which is on bullying. It covers a lot about responding to disrespect, responding to bullying, and that was one of the most requested chapters. That's the chapter that we are actually in tonight in the respect unit, and we'll be covering. We just started the last class with the note to the teacher. That's you, the teacher. Those of us that are training to be teachers. And that note to the teacher, we covered a few things. We covered what we want to achieve as a teacher of the Peaceful Solution, what we want to achieve with our students, and the knowledge that we want to impart to them about this responding to disrespect. Is something that really needs to be covered, but you can't, it's synergistic. You've got to have all of the Peaceful Solution. I'm going to put that up there on the overhead real quick. You've got to have all of the Peaceful Solution that works together. It starts out and you have an incident or a trigger, then you get thoughts, then the feelings start, the emotions start cranking in, and then depending upon what decision you make some actions, and then you'll have consequences or rewards. And sometimes those consequences or rewards are way down the line. It might not be right away. It might be way down the line. So, and it might come at a time that you least expect it. It might be when you get very old. Who knows? So we have to be aware of these things. A few of the things we talked about is getting even. That's how some people deal with disrespect. They want to get even and fight or shoot somebody. And this is a problem. This verbal and physical abuse, murder and suicide and stuff that occurs on school properties, we've seen more and more and more of these cases taking place. Back when this Peaceful Solution unit was written, there weren't that many things taking place in the schools. There were some, and we had heard of a few big ones like Jonesboro, Arkansas, Columbine, a few others. But now it seems like a every week thing, sometimes every day of the week. So in this unit, we want to learn how self-control comes into play in dealing with disrespect and responding to it, how our emotions come into play, and how we need to control our emotions and not conduct ourselves based upon the emotions we're feeling at the time. That's a very hard thing to do. For anybody who's ever been in any kind of an argument or fight, it's really the emotions that drive you. First, there's an incident or trigger where someone says something you don't like, it embarrasses you or belittles you in some way, and so you're going to get back at that person or prove you're right, you know. And that's the way it all starts, and it progresses from there. So we want to learn how to deal with these things. And responding to a bully can be a challenging thing. You know, bullies don't change overnight. It becomes a way of life for them. And there's different levels of bullying. Sometimes the bullying comes from, I remember, when I was in school, there was a point in time that before I became a bully, I was bullied. I would go into class and there was I think he was running back on the football team, very popular and everything, and he thought it was funny when I would walk up and see what he wanted, and I'd go up there and here it would come, the fist right in the middle of the chest, you know. It occurred more than once. Teachers didn't do anything about it. Principal didn't do anything about it. He was the running back. He was a star, man. They weren't going to do anything to him. So we see that the bullying is sometimes encouraged by the way we as adults conduct ourselves and when we see these things taking place. Some people have the idea that it's just a part of growing up, you know. Oh, that occurs everywhere. It's just a part of growing up. Well, it shouldn't be. You know, the interesting thing is when I think back and I remember that classroom that took place in on a pretty regular basis, I don't remember anybody's name. I don't remember, well, other than one person, I don't remember anybody else's name. I don't remember the teacher's name. I don't even remember what class it was in, like what the subject was. I know what school it was at. I know what age I was. And I know the perpetrator's name. That's it. That's all I remember. And I don't dwell on it or anything like that, but sometimes in dealing with this lesson, it crosses my mind. Of course, in most cases, that wasn't the only bullying. That's an extreme case of physical bullying that, you know, it's physical and occurring on a fairly normal basis. There's plenty of mental bullying that takes place, plenty of verbal bullying that takes place. And what I saw was that, once I got to a certain age, the bullying changed. It was no longer like it was in junior high or anything like that. What it became was more of a force type thing. Of course, people have to choose. A person would say, well, force is when you hold a gun to someone's head. Well, not really, because they can choose one way or another there too. You could call it force. So there's choices to be made all along the way. And whether you have a gun in your hand, or whether you're threatening them with death, or threatening them with whatever, not getting a piece of the pie, or threatening them with their job, or you name it, you know. If you are not using the Peaceful Solution Character Education program to communicate respectfully and to conduct yourself respectfully in all areas with the person in question or persons, then guess what? It's bullying. So this bullying can come our way in, this disrespect can come our way in a lot of ways, and so we have to be prepared on how we are going to respond to this when it comes our way. And that's the thing, being prepared, because it is a very hard thing to do to take it, you know, and without retaliation and without calling a person names and, you know, cutting him down behind his back and so forth. You know, the person obviously has a problem, and it's a problem that he has to work on. So we're not going to change the person doing the disrespecting. We're not going to change the bully. The only thing we can change is ourselves and how we react to it and how we conduct ourselves in the presence of that person when we ever run into them. and others when the topic comes up. This is what we can control, and this is what the peaceful solution teaches us to do. The peaceful solution doesn't teach us to control others. It teaches us to control ourselves. It's self-control. So, with all that being said, what we want to do is, in our respect unit, go ahead and turn to page Lesson Plan 5, page D, and we're going to start with Procedure 3. We finished up with the note to the teacher, and then talked about the lesson plan and went over some of the things we'll be covering, as well as covering everything, or the titles of everything within the chapter when we looked at the index. So today in procedure number 3, it starts out by saying, tell students that this lesson will discuss ways that they can respond appropriately to disrespect. Have students read the introduction and the section Disrespect Hurts, found on pages 115 and 117 in your handbooks. And emphasize that an important part of building a positive moral character is learning how to respond to disrespect in the most respectful and peaceful way possible. Now, I think I mentioned this before. I'm sure other teachers have too. There are going to be suggestions in our book here that on how we should handle, or how we could handle, disrespect when it comes our way. Mind you, these are suggestions. You know, it might not, if you went word for word and tried to memorize each of these suggestions that are in here, and then you try to spit it out of your mouth and it's not the way you normally talk, or you know, you're trying to remember, now what is it I need to tell him while he's, you know, while you're standing there in front of him. That doesn't work. You have to speak these things in your own words, as long as they're respectful. Remember, what is respectful? It's something that shows true care and concern, courteousness too, but stop, think, consider your options, and proceed with the right choice is what you want to do. So we want to do that when we're considering what to say and how to respond to people, regardless of whether they're bullying or not. So let's go ahead and turn to page 115, which is just one page over, I believe, 2 pages over. And let's look at that. Page 115 in the respect unit. If you're just coming in, or if you're online and haven't quite gotten there yet, remember you can do the drop down and actually download the book, the entire book, and all the books we've covered so far. So responding to disrespect with more disrespect does what? It adds fuel to the fire. What does that mean? Well, we've heard these things before, adding fuel to the fire. You know, it's common statement. But adding fuel to the fire means that there's a fire taking place, and you're going to throw some wood on it, or some paper, or some gasoline, or some type of flammable type stuff that will make it burn even more, with more rage. And so picture that, and understand that responding to disrespect with that more disrespect coming back at them just does that. You're not going to win the argument by disrespecting the person. You're not going to get your way by disrespecting the person, unless the person just has no, well, leave it at that right now. You might see it a little bit later. But responding to disrespect with more disrespect just adds fuel to the fire, okay? So chapter 5, responding to disrespect, and this is the introduction to the chapter. Have you ever said hello to a room filled with people and no one responded? Now think about this. When questions are asked in the lesson, it really does mean, has that ever occurred? You know, you think about it and think, you know, did that ever occur to me? Well, it has me. I have had that take place before, where everyone's just sitting there and they're not knowing why I'm there, what I'm doing there. They just got out of their prison cell and taking a little break, and they decided, oh, okay, I'll go to that class. And they didn't know what in the world was going on, and they just sat there with a blank look on their face until you kind of get started. But I've seen that before. Have you ever stood waiting patiently in line only to have someone cut in front of you? Oh boy, now that's a big one right there, because I see it take place on a pretty regular basis. Now, cutting in line and cutting in line can be two different things. Let's say you are some type of emergency personnel and people are standing in line, and the only way you can get to where you need to go to take care of something is to cut in line. Guess what? That's acceptable. As long as you do it respectfully. You don't have to be disrespectful. You don't have to go charging through there and push people out of the way and screaming at them and everything. I guess there might be a situation where that might be if time is extremely limited and the person is fixing to step completely off the cliff and there is no time, you might go rushing through there. I don't know. So I guess depending on the situation, but as a rule, you can do things courteously. You can do things without hurting somebody else. We see where, in fact, emergency personnel, they do get the permission, if you will, to break all the traffic rules and skip on through town going 70 miles an hour with their lights on and telling people to get out of the way, basically honking and beeping and driving crazy around people and all. They do have permission to do that, but I know in some cities that's very closely regulated, and they do require that they don't get too crazy out there. We've even seen large police departments. Los Angeles was a prime example. I don't know if they're still doing it, but at one time they said no more chases. We're done. Too many innocent deaths. Too much loss of equipment and so forth. Forget the chases. We have helicopters. We have GPS now. We have satellite. All these things. There's absolutely no reason for it except to prove who the hot dog is. Who can outrun him, who can cut him off, who can plow into the car like they do in the movies, And that would be the only reason someone would need to be chasing like that anymore, pretty much. So they have kind of adjusted these things a little bit. But anyway, let's go back to the cutting in line. So to add insult to injury, when you question the person's behavior, you're told to shut up and mind your own business. Okay, so someone cuts in front of you and you're like, oh, excuse me, you cut in front of me, the end of the line is right back there, and they get smart with you. What are you going to do? What would you do? Really, what would you do? Think about it for a minute and think about what would you do. In this day and time, those of you that are learning the peaceful solution and might have been learning for some time, what really would you do in that instance? Would you ignore it? Would you say something, and then if the person wasn't responsive and willing to talk about it, would you ignore it then? Would you let him just stay there? Would you mention to him that, not only did he cut in front of you, he cut in front of everybody else in line too, and there might be somebody that would get mad. So, what would you do? All right, well, interactions between friends, family members, and strangers can become disrespectful if one or more persons behave and speak without considering the feelings and needs of others. I remember there was this, I guess, the golden rule. You heard it in school sometimes, and I've heard adults say it quite a bit and everything, but it goes something like, do unto others as you want them to do unto you. And of course some people have twisted that and said, yeah, well, I'm going to punch him in the face because I'd expect him to punch me in the face if I did that, right? No, it's not like that. It's showing true care and concern, considering the feelings and needs of others. This goes back to what we were talking about a little bit as a teacher of the peaceful solution. You're going to have students, and when dealing with those students, some might be catching it a little quicker than others. You might see progress in one while not seeing it very quickly in the other. And you have to remember, you have to think about what has that particular student been through? What has their life been like up till now? Did they spend a lot of time in solitary confinement in prison? I know some that have, and that does something to a person. It takes a long time, if ever, to get past that. So because their progress might not be as quick as the person who had a fairly normal, decent upbringing without much drama and pain and agony and abuse, can you really look at the two and say they're on the same level playing field? No, you can't, because they're not. So you as a teacher, you as an individual practicing the peaceful solution, we have to be able to discern and look at these situations and figure out how to deal with the person, figure out how to get that point across. It'll take longer with some. It might take a long time with you yourself. It might be taking you longer than it would take someone else. It might be taking me longer than it would take someone else. So we have to be considerate. We have to show respect. We have to really have care and concern. Not something that comes out of your mouth. Care, concern. Boy, those are fancy words, aren't they? What does it really mean? That's what we have to think about and do. And it means that when you're dealing with someone that's disrespecting you also. Boy, that's a hard one, isn't it? That is a tough one. That's a tough cookie to swallow right there, man. Somebody's disrespecting you and you got to sit there and take it? What? I didn't do anything wrong. Why do I have to take it? I'm going to show him. I'm going to point it out. No, it doesn't work that way. If the person's that far gone, you need to leave it alone and come back at another time. Or get with somebody who can help you discuss how to deal with it. Maybe someone a little more experienced in conducting their controlling their emotions, for instance. You could get with them and ask, hey, what would you have done in this? I know you were standing there, you saw it. What would you have done? And get some advice. That works. It really does work. And then you can set your mind in advance next time. And this is part of the lesson. I don't mean to be getting into it, but setting your mind in advance and being prepared and everything, this is all part of what's coming up and part of everything we've covered in all the peaceful solution units so far. So it ought to be a normal everyday thing for you to hear that. In fact, when we're in any lesson in the peaceful solution, you can bet that in that lesson you're going to get many of the lessons we've already been through coming forth through what's being taught, because it all works together and it keeps building upon whatever's been built so far within your brain and within your heart. And remember, the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program, on the overhead right there, you can see where it says to change the hearts and minds. To change the hearts and minds. So it doesn't just change the mind like you walk out of here and say, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be this way from now on. And that occurs. No, it doesn't work that way. You have to change the heart. It has to be your desire to do so, okay? All right. So how should you respond when someone treats you disrespectfully? Well, you got to be prepared. You got to have all these things that you've already been taught. You got to have self-control. You really need all that stuff. Should you retaliate and be disrespectful in return? No. Or should you try to ignore the person in the situation? Might be. You might have to. When someone is disrespectful to you, you might automatically want to retaliate by either attacking verbally, physically, or both. And what I've seen is most of the time it starts verbally and escalates. But any action that can result in harm to others or yourself is not practicing the peaceful solution or demonstrating a positive moral character. On the other hand, some acts of disrespect can have such a negative effect on us that trying to ignore them might not be possible and might in fact lead to hatred and resentment. Hatred and resentment, that resentment is holding a grudge, and you start resenting that person. Now, of course there's going to be feelings that come your way, and you've had this situation with the person and you see him sitting over there across the room or something like that, and you have this feeling come up that's like, oh, I don't want to go around that guy, Well, you might be wise not to go around that person in thinking that, but depending upon how it holds on in your life, and if you're like really just dwelling on it every day and the hatred starts building, it's one thing we're going to talk about is having cool thoughts instead of hot thoughts and so forth. But this stuff starts building, and it becomes hatred, and it becomes resentment and holding a grudge. And then your health starts going down, your mental health, your physical health. And it's only you that's being affected by it, not him. He's sitting on the other side of the room with a, margarita in his hand or something, not even paying attention to you. And you're there, just your whole life is wrapped up around it, So we want to avoid that. And it's for our own well-being as well as others. Even the perpetrator, even the person doing the disrespecting, okay? And we should want the best for that person. If we want the best for that person, you know what? It would turn around. Our thoughts would start turning around. If we want the best for the person that's doing harm to us, our thoughts start turning around. Our attitudes start showing a little bit differently, even when that person comes around and tries his disrespect moves. And pretty soon that person will see the change in you, or see the light in you is what I'll call it, and that'll turn it away eventually. Might not do it right away, but eventually it will turn it away. Or there will be others that stand up, with you and tell the person, we need to stop this. I'm not talking about others to stand up and go beat him down and, a gang type violence thing. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about more people that stand up and say, you know what, you need to stop this. You need to leave him alone. I've seen that recently in dealing with a situation with the state of Texas had a big old property tax raise, and I saw that a lot of people didn't really want to go for that. They thought it was unfair because of the huge raise. It was actually pretty oppressive in some cases. And so people stood up and said, we want to know why this is taking place. And they started asking questions. And then I've seen where because of that, people being respectful now. I don't know, there might be people that called up and screaming and cursing and everything else, but there are respectful people that checked into these things, and things got solved. And this is the way to do it. You can ask questions. You can find out if there's something that you disagree with. And you can handle these things in a respectful way instead of a disrespectful way. Because you don't want to do anything either that's going to cause hatred and resentment to start forming in someone's mind and heart. They have to make their own choices, so you're not making it take place, but you could be the incident or the trigger that flips it and makes it start taking place in that case. But in the previous chapter, you explored some of the ways people disrespect each other as individuals and as society. And if you remember, we did do that. We talked about how the last chapter, how it would take place in society, in different cultures, different religions, different nationalities, and some of the differences within people and so forth, and how disrespect hurts and how respect causes rewards. So in this chapter, we'll learn how we can appropriately respond when disrespect is shown to you and maintain your positive moral character. So all this time you've been working up to this, you've been in the book and looking at and learning what disrespect is and learning what respect is and some of the ways we should handle it and we should conduct ourselves. And now we get to this part right here, which is what everyone wants to know. Well, what do I do when someone's disrespecting me? Well, okay. You got to use it all. You can't just start right here. You got to use it all. You got to use everything that you've been learning. You got to put it to work, man. Pull it up. So, what I'd like to do, let's see. I'd like to just point out one or two things real quick. One of the things I'd like you to remember on that overhead right there, we've got to remember that verbal abuse, see? Verbal abuse is like physical abuse, and in some ways it can be even worse, because the mental attack that takes place, and people hold on to these things for a lifetime. It's just like I mentioned at the start of the class. I remembered this man, young man at the time. I remembered what he did to me. I remember some other instances and everything, but I don't sit around worrying about what took place with this guy and trying to get back at him, and it's not affecting much of my life, if any, at this point in time, but it affected me when I was younger. It probably affected it did affect some choices on what I did at school. Probably had an effect on whether I skipped school or came to class, or whether I was in sports or not in sports, or what have you. So many different things, so many different levels. And not only me, but it rippled out, because then whatever I chose to do or not do rippled out to the people around me. And they might have chosen to do or not do based upon what I did also, just because of that one case of that bullying that took place. And I guarantee you, it did affect me in the next several years in junior high and high school. Not that I dwelt on it every day, but it did have an effect on my total value system and these things from my environment on the way I made decisions. And not knowing the peaceful solution at the time also, and not really having anyone that cared if I even talked to them about it. So let's turn the page and go to page 116 real quick. This is disrespect hurts. And so obviously from some of the things we talked about already, it is obvious that yes, it does hurt. And in this particular section right here, we'll be talking about the different types of disrespect also. There's not just one type of disrespect. We'll talk about it in just a minute. But I want to start out here. It says, it is one thing to know that people can be disrespectful to each other, but it's quite a different experience when it occurs to us personally. So without the determination to make positive choices, we'll stop right there for a minute. The determination to make positive choices, meaning we take everything that we've learned up till now in the peaceful solution, everything we learned about character and what it is and why we need it and why we should have morals, positive morals that we work with ourselves, people around us, society, and so forth. We want to take that. We want to take everything we learned from acceptance and how we need to accept people and understand not everybody's been taught. We accept them. We give them respect, but we don't have to join in and agree with what they do. But we want to take all these things and everything we learned in self-control too, and put it to work. Put it to work in our lives. Put it to work in determining to make positive choices and deal with the disrespectful situations appropriately. It can be very easy to respond disrespectfully in return. That's like knee-jerk. I mean, we've been taught that all our lives, so that's the knee-jerk thing. Someone does something, your face starts getting a little warm, your hands get a little clenched, you want to prove you're right, and it turns into that deal. That's common. That can be done easily. That's easy to do. We need to do the thing that's hard to do and do the uncommon thing. So I hope I'm moving along here slow enough. I know I go slow sometimes to keep my thoughts in check, and hopefully if I'm going slow enough, people can get what I'm saying. And people have had comments like that before, saying, I appreciate you going slow and taking it kind of easy. So I don't try to speed through these things very much, especially when I land on a certain subject here. But this is the trap of disrespect, and many people fall into it. Get that? We fall into it because it's like a hole, like a trap, and we're already familiar with it, and sometimes it feels so much more comfortable just to bust off and do that than work hard to do differently. Some think that they will be seen as cowardly and weak if they don't retaliate. And this comes from, once again, our environment. If anybody here has ever been in prison, you would know that you would be seen as cowardly and weak if you do not stand up for yourself and retaliate. Not only in prison, that's a more drastic example, but in schools too. If you don't stand up and retaliate, people would bully you even more, mock you, make fun of you. So the truth is, it takes courage and moral determination to treat others with consideration, even when they're being unkind to you. Now, let's go back and look at that. It takes courage. Did you know that one of the things that the disrespecter does, the perpetrator, the bully, one of the things that they do is they discourage you. They want to show how big they are, and I'm going to see you after school, buddy. Or, you're going to do it my way. My way's the right way, and no one even knows what they're doing except me. They want to discourage you and make you look stupid in front of other people. They want to take your courage away. But we're being told here in the Peaceful Solution that the truth is, it takes courage and moral determination to treat others with consideration even when they're being unkind to you. So the bully wants to take your courage away. They want to discourage you so that you fall into their trap and do whatever it is they're trying to bully you into doing. Whether it be talking you into doing something that you don't want to do, whether it be talking you into going ahead and fighting because they just won't let up, they just won't let go, or talking you into doing something that's going to hurt somebody else. They take your courage away. And when your courage goes away, out the window goes your moral determination to treat others with consideration, and even when these people are being unkind to you. It's very, very, very hard to do. I'm not kidding you. It's extremely hard. So we're not playing here. We're being very serious about this. And it takes everything you can muster up and everything you've learned in the Peaceful Solution to be able to stand there and not let your courage be stolen from you and stand up for moral principles, positive moral principles, okay? I don't mean stand up by fighting either. So when we interact respectfully, in fact, let me stop here for just a minute. I want you to, I'm going to read this to you. I want you to see this, but this is a page out of the respect unit. In fact, I think it might be page 36 for those of you that have. It says page 36. Let me just make sure. No, it's not page 36. Okay, so this was page 36. But replace those thoughts. No one is immune to having negative thoughts. Everyone must deal with disappointments, setbacks, and making mistakes. So we're talking about negative thoughts here. This is a part of the process of growing up, and remember, as long as you continue to build a positive moral character, you can minimize the major mistakes that involve taking risks with your health, safety, well-being. Okay. If you make a mistake, it doesn't mean that you're a failure. Even if you get in an argument with somebody and it escalates, it doesn't mean you're a failure. It just means it's being pointed out to you what you need to do. We talked about a battery and how that works. It has a negative side and a positive side, and they both have to be connected for it to work. Now, that's not saying that we have to have negatives. I'm just saying that when the negative comes your way, if you look at it as something that's needful, when someone's doing something to you, pushing your buttons, if you look at it as though it's needful for you to see where you're at in your walk with the Peaceful Solution. Because if they push those buttons and you handle it beautifully, you're like, yeah, I'm getting somewhere. But if they push those buttons and you want to punch them in the face, we got a little more work to do, right? So we want to replace those thoughts. We want to handle the pessimistic, the negative thoughts, and the negative self-talk, and all these things that we get, and the negative thoughts about others. We want to imagine a big eraser in our mind that erases these negative thoughts, not just about ourselves, but others too. And we want to replace the thoughts with positive thoughts. That helps a lot. Is it hard to do? Everything I'm telling you tonight is hard to do. I mean, it really, really is. I'm not playing. It really is hard to do, but you can do it. I know, because those of you that I see here tonight at headquarters, I know you've been through a lot with the Peaceful Solution and working with others and sharing your examples and sharing your experiences and everything. And so I know you can do it. It just takes some effort, big time. And I'm talking to myself too. So optimism, pessimism in your thoughts. Now, this is, well, also, thinking positively is important to how you treat yourself and others. Many people must learn how to be optimistic, positive thinkers. And being optimistic, positive is a character trait that will enable you to expect the best possible outcome from a situation. You see that? Expect the best. Optimistic people are hopeful and encouraging. Get that? They don't take people's courage away. They encourage. They don't say negative things to somebody, and whether they're doing it purposely to bring them down on purpose, which is what, the bully, the perpetrator, the disrespecter does. But they might be doing it unknowingly just by talking negative. They might be taking someone's courage away. It's so easy to do that. It's so easy to steal from somebody else. It's so easy to disrespect somebody that we don't even see some of the disrespect that takes place. So the pessimistic person will see what's wrong in a situation, and he usually has a problem with almost everything and jumps to conclusions without getting all the facts. Pessimistic people are negative thinkers. A pessimistic thinker has a tendency to feel badly about himself and the world around him. Pessimistic people are negative self-talkers and are more likely to find external ways to try to make themselves feel better. Self-medication is one way. Often these things are negative, and you guessed it, very risky. Very risky. They can go and put on that false courage, go and take something that makes them feel those emotions and hormones and everything that adrenaline and everything gets to flowing and makes you feel invincible. Now you have all this false courage that only is there when you do this drug or drinking or whatever it is you do. You get that false courage and go to town, boy. And then you think you have to have it all the time, so you keep on doing it, and your life just turns into a shambles from there. What you're learning in the Peaceful Solution is the true way to have courage. The truth. That's what you're learning in the Peaceful Solution. And you don't have to be seen as cowardly or weak. The reason people see you as cowardly or weak when you're being meek and humble about a situation, but yet standing your ground on moral principles, the reason they see you as cowardly or weak is because of their problems. It's because they don't know what it's like to be humble and acceptable and so forth. They have no idea. And what they are doing is not courage at all. When you're bullying somebody and you're disrespecting them, that's not showing courage. You are stealing someone's courage from them, but you can't keep it and use it. It doesn't build up in you, and now you got bunches of it and can throw it all around. It doesn't work that way. In fact, the person doing it probably has very little courage and very little self-respect, and that's the reason it's taking place in the first place. They're trying to get some courage built up by getting a crowd mentality going, and that's what's taking place. I'm sure some of you in this room have been bullies before, and I'm sure some of you have been bullied. I've been on both sides of the fence, okay? So I kind of know a little bit about both of them. All right, so again, the optimism and pessimism, this all needs to be something we're working on, along with self-control, along with everything that we know, so we can deal with this when it takes place. If you're not putting everything you've learned to work in this, then you're not going to fare too well, and you are going to go away feeling defeated and like a failure. And so we need to put everything to work and learn and prepare in advance on taking care of these situations. Remember, it all works together. It's actually a big attitude. Let me show that. I like to bring this with me. Attitude is everything, okay? It really is. It's the attitude that you have on how you are going to work with people, respond to people, interact with people. It's the attitude you have about yourself. It's all of that. And so, again, you're not going to really do much changing to the other person's attitude. The only way they're going to change their attitude is themselves changing it. Now, you can be an example. You can be a great example to them on how to conduct themselves and what a great attitude is. And when they see that, they will look at that and wonder, what's up with this guy? How can he remain so calm? Why didn't he fight back? He seems very intelligent. I need to find out what that guy is on, man. I need to find out what is going on with that person. Man, if only I could be that way. I don't know of anybody that looks at the bully and says, if only I could be that way. I mean, even back in school, as a child, I never looked at that bully and said, man, I just want to be like him. Have any of y'all? I mean, if you were bullied, have you ever looked at the bully and really desired to be like that person? Really? I mean, I don't think so. I don't see any hands going up, but I don't know if I'd raise my hand anyway. But I mean, really think about it. Yet, when you look at somebody that handles themselves very well in every situation, it's easy to look at that person and say, man, I'd like to be like that person. Anyways, let's continue on here. So the truth is, it takes courage and moral determination to treat others with consideration, even when they're being unkind to you. That's on page 116 of the respect unit. When we interact respectfully, and we're learning what respect is and what disrespect is so we can make sure it is respectful, we expect others to do the same. We expect it. We need to be prepared for if they don't, but we need to expect, being optimistic, with a right attitude, we need to expect that they are going to be respectful also. When our respectful interactions are met with the disrespect, it can leave us feeling shocked and confused. Imagine if this took place with you with someone that you look up to, that you hold in a position of honor and trust. Possibly even someone who, like your boss or something like that, or a parent that has some authority over you. You know, imagine a child when the first time, second time, third time, whatever, how many times, the first time, how they felt shocked and confused and humiliated and then angry with someone like a parent that abused them. There's probably some in here. There's probably some online. So you might know more about it. It might be an extreme example, but it's not uncommon. It's not an uncommon example. This is way prevalent in society today. But when we expect these respectful interactions, that the respectful moves that we're making, when they're met with disrespect, it can leave us feeling shocked, confused, humiliated, angry, at a loss for ways to even manage our feelings. I mean, it could send us into oblivion. Responding respectfully to the disrespect is probably one of the hardest things. So see, I've been telling you, but it's right here too. It's one of the hardest things you will ever have to do, because disrespect is so hurtful. It is so hurtful. Especially, it's not so hurtful when it comes from a stranger, but when it comes from somebody within a family, somebody you know, somebody you work with, somebody, again, that you look up to. When it comes from them, the hurt can be devastating. Many people never get over it. Many people drop into depression. So disrespect hurts. We got to remember that. And I really want to get to these different types of disrespect, so we're going to move a little bit here. Here are some of the most frequent ways people disrespect each other. And I expect the next teachers to probably talk a little bit about this too, because these different types of disrespect take a little time to really dive into. I would imagine, I think Chris will be the next teacher, and he'll probably get into this also. But taking, touching, or borrowing someone's belongings without asking, guess what? It is disrespectful. It's also stealing. Teasing, putting someone down, making fun of others. It's disrespectful, and it's also stealing their courage. You're discouraging them, not encouraging. Making sexual comments or jokes. touching someone appropriately and or physically trying to cause hurt. Have you ever had that person that just comes up and always has to touch you? I mean, you know, it might not even be anything. It might just be they got to put their hand on your shoulder or something like that, or tap you all the time. There might be an occasion for that to take place with anybody. You know, if there is a need where someone has a situation and you might be stopping them from hurting themselves, you might have to tap them on the shoulder to get their attention or something. But I'm talking about the people that do this on a normal basis, part of their normal genre. It's normal. They're that way. They go and touch people all the time and grab their shoulder and stuff, and everyone says, "Oh, he's just that way." No, it doesn't matter if he's just that way. It's still disrespectful. I mean, think about it. It's disrespectful. I don't want people touching me all the time. You know, I'm sure there's other people in this room that feel the same way. So, touching someone inappropriate, and that is inappropriate. You didn't ask, you know, inappropriate, and are physically trying to cause hurt. And that could be talking about other things too, just like the bullet point or the point above it. Not regarding someone's opinions by ignoring or interrupting when they are speaking. You know, not showing care and concern and being courteous to that person by listening to their point of view, interrupting them, lying, being dishonest and unfair, bullying and taking advantage of others. Maybe you have some knowledge about something that someone else don't, and instead of sharing that knowledge with them, to possibly even share with them why you stand for a certain thing and desire to see something go a certain way, instead of sharing all the knowledge with them, you just want to force the issue with them, bullying them and belittling them, make them look bad so they'll fold and go with you in whatever you do. That's being dishonest and unfair, and bullying and taking advantage of others. Pressuring someone to do something they feel uncomfortable doing. So here are some of the most frequent ways people disrespect each other. We just read it. Taking your anger out on others. So in addition to the ways listed, this is on page 117, we can also imagine disrespect. Okay, I love this one. Think about this. Imagine disrespect. Really? So, imagine disrespect. How do you do that? Well, in other words, we can jump to conclusions. Write down page number 62. You could go back and look in the self-control unit, page 62. It's a page on jumping to conclusions. It kind of covers it. In fact, the pages around it covers it quite well. But with jumping to conclusions without getting all the facts and assume that someone's being disrespectful, that's called imagine disrespect. For example, you walk into a room just to see your friends whispering and laughing, and as soon as they notice you, they stop. Well, as you approach them, they begin to talk in a normal tone of voice, and you think they were talking about you and assume they were putting you down. Oh man, that would be easy to do, right? But do you know for a fact that they were talking about you? You know, have you gotten the facts? And if they were, how do you know that they were putting you down? Fact is, you don't know. However, if you respond by ignoring them or treating them cruelly in retaliation, you will only make the situation worse and possibly lose your friends. Think about that. That has occurred over and over again. People jumping to conclusions and losing friends by the way they conduct themselves based upon what they saw without getting the facts. Remember, number one thing in the peaceful solution is get educated. Find out about things. Find out about why you do things and why you join in and agree with certain things. Find out the facts. Find out the facts about things you see take place before you let your emotions take you off into la-la land and make a decision that you would never have done. And part of that is communication, and also in self-control. You can write this down, page 92 and 93, can give you some hints on communicating properly and sharing with each other. You know, you share, when you look at somebody and your facial features go a certain way, you're sharing information with the other person you're talking to, as well as they are too when you're looking at their face and you see how they're looking. Whether you plan on it or not, you're sharing information and you're getting facts. Same thing with tone of voice. You are sharing information with your tone of voice to the other person, and they are you too. You might be sharing that, you don't know what in the world you're talking about, and you're very pessimistic and negative, and you're ready for a fight. You might be sharing that info with them. Or you might be sharing with them that you're very calm and intelligent and use wisdom in your interaction with people. Think about it. So then on page 55, you can write this down too. I was going to take you there, but I really want to get to this next paragraph. Page 55 is, being respectful in all your communication, communicate respectfully. And that's, of course, in page 52 in the respect unit, page 55, both of those, okay? So let's look on down. I'm going to get to this last paragraph. We're almost out of time, but as you can see, disrespect can be real. What is real disrespect? That's when, I do something to you, it's disrespectful, and whether it be kicking your chair, whether it be pushing you down, whether it be cursing you out, whether it be calling you a name, whether it be stealing from you, whether it be taking your lunch money, whether it be talking to somebody behind your back that doesn't need to know whatever it is I told them, cutting you down, teasing, bullying, all these things, that is real disrespect, okay? You got it? Everybody with me? You know what real disrespect is? Okay. You've probably experienced a lot of it, possibly even some today, okay? Now there's imagined disrespect that we just talked about. Totally imagine, the person or you yourself look and say, that person disrespected me, they did this, and you start letting it build within you, and you're going off into la-la land thinking, that guy, why does he hate me so much? Why is he disrespecting me? And you don't even have all the facts yet. Totally imagined. Think about it. We do that too. We do that. Probably everyone in here. This is tough stuff. This is hard stuff. This is some of the toughest stuff you'll ever do is overcome this disrespect and responding to disrespect. Then there's the intentional or unintentional. Now think about that. So, in that real disrespect, it can be intentional or unintentional. I gave you examples of intentional disrespect. What if I did it unintentionally? What if I said something that hurt your feelings, said something that you felt belittled and disrespected, and other people were around watching, and you're like, why did he say that around those people? That's very disrespectful. Why couldn't he just pull me aside and talk to me about this? Well, that might be unintentional. If I did something to you and didn't even know about it, but yet it was real, I did it, I bumped your chair, I bumped your books off the table, I didn't say I was sorry and didn't mean to, or you said hello and I didn't say hello back and acknowledge you, or a multitude of things. I told you I was going to do something for you and I didn't do it. I didn't plan on not doing it. It didn't occur. I still disrespected you, but it was unintentional. Are you getting this? Are you with me? So we have real disrespect, and it can be imagined, it could be intentional or unintentional, all right? Is that getting kind of clear? But then we have this thing called imagined disrespect. It's just not even real. It's not even real. It is to you because you imagined it. So it is a real thing to you. But it's not real disrespect. It's just imagined. And so get the facts, get over it, find out there was no disrespect taking place, and move on. So this is important because people don't even realize that, as far as anyone's concerned, is you disrespected me, man. It doesn't matter if it was real or unintentional or imagined or intentional. It's just disrespect, okay? But with so many ways that disrespect can occur, it's up to you to be prepared to deal with it. How are you prepared? Setting your mind in advance. using cool thoughts instead of hot thoughts, being positive instead of negative, using everything you've learned in the Peaceful Solution up till now, putting it all to work in your life. And we're moving on. We're getting towards the end of the program. I, all of us ought to be able to start using some of these things and putting them to work in our life and do this actual thing. You're not going to get it perfect every time. And remember, it's hard. But a person with a moral character will always make an effort to handle even the most difficult situations in a respectful way. And so, anyways, this is page 117. We just finished up with the introduction and disrespect hurts, and that was procedure number 3. And so we are learning ways to respond to this disrespect in respectful, peaceful ways that doesn't hurt anybody. So on the next class, which will be Sunday night at 5:30, coming up this next Sunday at 5:30, we look forward to all of you being here. I believe Chris will be the next teacher. I'm sure there'll be a little bit of review and going forward, because this is such an important thing. And the next pages, 118 and 19, being prepared and how preparation requires self-control. Man, look forward to it. Be ready for it. Read it in advance. I mean, be ready for the class, all right? So it's great that all of you could attend. We really appreciate you coming and wanting to be teachers of the Peaceful Solution. And we all look forward to the next class where we're all here together. Thank you for coming.